kiyep na pe. Ipum uja really uja mahmitam yo ipayam kai kurkur learn it. With another 5 years from now, seeing on and with yam what no more dialect and learn now. Puik square waika uja kiyep learn the dialect. Yama what so yep yama. This kichak yep, think about it. For you. Yarma kapo ya.
When the world was created, He created it for us. He also charged us with stewardship of the lands. Our people have maintained that tradition since time immemorial.
There are 107 federally recognized tribes in the state of California and several unrecognized tribes that are trying to attain recognition that were terminated during the termination era.
Indian country in Northern California was overrun in the search of gold and to acquire timberland. It decimated the coastal tribes.
Everything that could possibly happen happened to us. This is what happened to tribes across the nation, of course. However, we were the last, and so they were much better at their Indian fighting by the time they got to California. We have survived. We've survived termination. We've survived the wars against us. We've survived the diseases brought, to our people.
We're one of the few tribes that was never removed from their ancestral lands. This area was explored for gold. Fortunately, they didn't find gold. To the north of us, the Upper Klamath Basin, there was a lot of mining, and so our neighboring tribes were decimated by the gold rush. On the coast, the rush was the rush of the timber barons. We were very fortunate in that our place is surrounded geographically by a lot of barriers that made it very difficult for the non-Indian to come in and invade. We weren't contacted by non-Indians or by Europeans until the 1840s, which was very late.
Our people were murdered, punished. Our fingers were taken when we didn't meet quotas. When we had no fingers to give, they would take our ears or our nose. California Indians were severely oppressed and suffered from genocide. The missions were built under the enslavement of our people. As a matter of fact, my great-grandmother is buried underneath Mission Boulevard in front of San Gabriel Mission. I believe that the mission system did have a lot to do with the genocide and the oppression that happened with California Indians. And I'm speaking in a broad term, not necessarily just my tribe.
But we've been here for over 12,000 years. Unfortunately, when the missions were being built, they took our people, our children, and our daughters and our mothers and made them pretty much wards of the state, did what they want with them. Hey, you're going to be a servant here, you're heathens, you don't know anything about what life is and that kind of thing. You don't have actually kind of government, but we did. We were a thriving nation at the time. Even though we did struggle and had those struggles in our life beforehand, it's okay to give back to those who at one time didn't really like us a lot. But on the other hand, that was yesterday. Today is for the future, for the next 7 generations, that we need to be a community together and work together to make life good for everyone. During the turn of the century, 1900s, they wouldn't allow us to speak our language in schools. They took that away from us, and now we're bringing it back 100-fold. And it's just been, when you hear our kids saying hoka, which means hello in our language, it just makes you feel warm inside that our language still is alive.
It's going to take a long time for some others, but people are beginning to realize that Indian people knew a lot more than the outside could ever perceive. The knowledge that they had was passed down from generation to generation to generation for thousands of years. There are some horrendous stories about the treatment in the boarding schools. And only the strong-willed students were the ones that survived the boarding schools.
The government established programs to civilize the Indians. They had an Indian boarding school here that was operated until the 1930s. My grandparents went there. My great-grandparents were alive at the time. Their children were taken from them. They were beaten for speaking their language. I loved my grandparents, but both my grandparents were buried with scars from that school. When my grandfather was 10 years old, his skull was broken by a disciplinarian for speaking his language.
Now we got something to take care of our people. Where the government or the state or anybody couldn't help us. So now you say we don't pay our fair shares, you're a liar. So today, I said, we actually got our children motivated to go back to school. We got some of our elders are still with us and see some of these things that came from tin can houses, gutted cars, little packing shed. It was the house. Today, they're going to move into a $180,000 house with everything in there. Children that's coming behind us will have a place for their home. And at least we can say, hey, we got some of our land back. Not all of it. Not the millions that we lost. That was the big question. When the governor said, you don't pay your fair share, I told him, we had a meeting here about 2 months ago. I said, what do you call fair share? We give you our elders. We give you our ancestors. We give you our land.
There's one thing non-Indians don't understand. They don't understand that when you live amongst your people, you carry the scars of your grandparents. And the pain is still there. The pain will always be there. But we're also very proud because what they endured has made us stronger. And that's why we believe we'll always be here. We can't, we'll never have to endure what they endured.